I've been studying wood decay my whole scientific career. Early in my career, I got an opportunity to set up some long-term studies of this process, and it's a long-term, thing. I mean, sometimes it takes thousands of years for wood to decompose. Sometimes it takes 10 years, but it always takes a long time relative to what we usually do. The one that got everyone's attention was to study the decomposition of wood for 200 years. It was part of a long-term ecological research program, LTER, and they thought, well, this will get people's attention. That's long-term. Let's propose to do that. Well, it sounded great, but they didn't have it all worked out in terms of the practicalities and such. So I came and helped design it. And 30 years ago, we were installing that study. And we'll sample those logs this fall, so on the 30th anniversary. We're not quite there yet. And so it was quite an involved endeavor. We had timber companies come in and cut down trees in various places that we wanted and sort them to the sizes we want them and bring them into the forest and put them out there, and then we sampled the logs and mapped them so we could find them and know what they looked like. In addition to the long-term ecological research program, there's this long-term ecological reflections program which started with writers in residence, writers in the woods, and with the Spring Creek Project. So people came up here, and they stayed for a week or two, maybe a little longer, and they were asked to go to certain places to reflect and make observations, make humanities observations. So anyways, there's a place where they're supposed to look at riparian zone. And then there was the log decomposition site we're going to go to. And what impressed me was the materials the writers came up with, some of them on the log decom. And it got me thinking about how, I'm obsessed with the scientific view, and there's this also utilitarian view. Dead trees are useless and a waste, and no, they're interesting science. Then I realized there's this cultural aspect to the dead wood. And people were reflecting on longevity, legacies, and recycling, and all kinds of things, about their human condition, but through the wood. So I thought, that's interesting. I then had to wrote a proposal to kind of synthesize all my scientific work, and I wanted to do some outreach, but I didn't want to do the usual stuff, like in a nature center or something. The writers really came up with some creative, interesting stuff, and it stands on its own. It's not dependent on science per se. Why can't we do this more? So I proposed part of this project would have an outreach, but it'd be through, originally I thought the written arts, but then it kind of evolved into the visual arts. And we may actually have some musical arts too represented in this effort. So the idea is to use the dead wood as a way to think about some of these themes. And also, by doing that, not convince them the science is right, but really help people understand that just because a tree is dead doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It can have value because it makes us think about things that are important to us.